I never thought I'd be posting here, but lately I've started doubting my own instincts, and that scares me more than what's actually happening. My wife and I have been together for 10 years, married for 7. From the outside, we look solid. No big scandals, no dramatic fights. Just routines, shared friends, a quiet life. I genuinely believed we were fine. The first thing that changed wasn't her behavior toward me. It was her calm. She stopped reacting to things. If I came home late, she didn't ask why. If I was stressed, she listened politely, like it wasn't a problem anymore. I told myself this was maturity, trust, growth. Then came the phone, always face down, always within reach, notifications off. If I joked about it, she'd smile and say, "You're really observant lately," like that was a flaw. Whenever I asked if something was wrong, she had the same answer ready. "You're overthinking. You're stressed. You always do this." And I believed her, mostly because I wanted to. The first crack appeared on a random Thursday. She said she'd be working late, texted me twice with updates, something she never did. When she finally got home, close to midnight, she smelled different. Not bad, just unfamiliar. I asked if she'd changed perfume. She said no and turned away too quickly. That night, I lay awake replaying everything. The calm, the distance, the way she didn't need me anymore. It wasn't enough to accuse her of anything, but it was enough to make me start paying attention. A few days later, she left her phone on the counter while she showered. A message lit up before I could look away. I still think about last night. No name I recognized. No context I could explain away. I didn't confront her. I didn't grab the phone. I just stood there, feeling something settle in my chest. Not anger. Not shock. Clarity. The next morning, I asked casually if she felt like we'd been drifting. She sighed. Here we go again. That's when I realized something important. This wasn't going to be a confession story. It was going to be a how long has this been going on story. And I had a feeling the truth was a lot bigger than I was ready for. After that, I stopped asking questions. Not because I didn't care, but because every answer felt rehearsed. Calm. Designed to shut things down. So I watched. I noticed patterns. Late nights on the same days. A lighter mood when she came home. How she'd check her phone the moment she thought I wasn't looking. How she stopped asking about my life entirely. One night, a mutual friend texted me. "Hey, random question. Are you out with your wife tonight?" I said no. They replied, "Oh, I thought I saw her with someone who looked like you." When she came home later, she was relaxed, smiling. She kissed me on the cheek and said work ran late. No hesitation. No nerves. That's when it hit me. She wasn't hiding. She was confident. Confident that if anything ever surfaced, she could explain it away. The same way she always explained me away. I started documenting things quietly. Dates. Times. Messages she forgot to silence. I wasn't trying to catch her. I was trying to protect myself. When I finally confronted her, I kept my voice calm. I told her I knew she was seeing someone else. She laughed, not nervously, amused. "You're imagining things," she said. "You've been off lately." I told her what I'd seen. The messages, the timelines. Her expression shifted, not to guilt, but to irritation. "So what if I was," she snapped. "Do you know how lonely I've been?" And just like that, the conversation wasn't about her lying anymore. It was about my failures, my distance, my flaws, a list she'd clearly prepared long before this moment. That's when I realized something terrifying. She wasn't reacting. She was executing a plan. She'd already told people I was stressed, that I was paranoid, that I'd been spiraling. I started getting texts asking if I was okay, if I needed support. The affair wasn't the most dangerous part. The story she was telling about me was, and if I didn't stop reacting soon, I was going to lose more than my marriage. I was going to lose my voice. By the time I understood what was happening, I wasn't angry anymore. I was alert. I stopped reacting the way she expected. No raised voice. No begging for honesty. No emotional speeches. I answered calmly, briefly, like every word mattered. And that change didn't go unnoticed. She started watching me more closely, asking where I was going, who I was texting, why I was so quiet. The irony would have been funny if it hadn't hurt so much. One night she said, "You've been really distant lately." I looked at her and said, "I'm just tired." The exact word she'd used on me for months. She didn't like that. I could see it in the way her jaw tightened. She tried to pull me back into the old dynamic, brought up old arguments, hinted at how worried people were about me, suggested I talk to someone. I realized then that the confusion I'd been living in wasn't an accident. It had been useful. As long as I was questioning myself, she never had to explain anything. Behind the scenes, I started preparing. Quietly, I saved messages, wrote down timelines, not because I wanted revenge, but because I needed to anchor myself in facts. I needed something solid when everything else felt slippery. When I finally confronted her again, I didn't accuse. I stated. I told her I knew the relationship with the other guy wasn't new. I told her I knew she'd been setting a narrative about me long before I said a word. She didn't deny it. She rolled her eyes and said, "You're really going to make this a thing?" That sentence told me everything. I asked her how long she'd planned to blame me for this. She stared at me, silent for a moment too long. Then she said, "I was protecting myself." That's when it fully sank in. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a strategy, and I was never supposed to see it clearly. After that conversation, everything slowed down. There were no more big fights, no dramatic scenes, just a quiet shift. I stopped engaging, stopped explaining, stopped trying to prove I wasn't the version of me she'd been describing to everyone else. That seemed to confuse her more than anything. She suggested counseling, not to fix us, but to work through how I was reacting. She talked about staying friends, about time and space, about how we'd both grown. I listened, nodded, and said nothing, because I finally understood that every conversation was just another attempt to control the ending. So I made my decision without announcing it. I spoke to a lawyer again. I separated finances. I planned my exit calmly, without urgency. And when I told her I was leaving, there was no speech. I just said, "I'm done living in a version of reality that isn't mine." She looked stunned, not heartbroken, stunned, like someone who'd lost the ability to steer the story. Weeks later, in the quiet that followed, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not happiness. Not relief. Peace. I realized that betrayal doesn't always look like cheating. Sometimes it looks like being slowly convinced you can't trust your own thoughts. If you're reading this and you feel constantly confused, constantly defending your memory, constantly explaining who you are, stop. Pay attention to patterns, to consistency, to how someone reacts when you stop reacting. Walking away didn't make me weak. It made me whole again.